Hello and welcome to the next Music on the Brain. This episode I hadn't been planning on talking about this musician for a while, but in light of recent events, it seems only fitting that I talk about him now. If you are a fan of music and you read any news pertaining to music, you probably heard that last week the musician Lou Reed passed away. I haven't talked about him yet, but he is the entire reason why I started singing in a band. The first I knew of Lou Reed was through Walkin' the Wild Side, which somehow played on those oldie stations that my parents listened to. I always knew it and I always liked it, but I didn't really know who it was from. Fast forward to being in college, when I started getting into lots of different types of music, and at this point I had worked my way through a lot of the punk back to the Velvet Underground. Velvet Underground is the band that Lou Reed was in with John Cale. With the passing of Lou Reed, there's so much information out there onto the history of the Velvet Underground and Lou Reed. I'm not going to rehash it. I'm just going to talk about my feelings about it and how he connected to me. At the time, when I started listening to the Velvet Underground, I had been playing bass in a band, and I never had aspirations of singing in a band, because I would listen to, like, David Bowie, and I couldn't sing like he could, and I would listen to bands where people screamed, and I didn't want to scream the whole time, so I just assumed I was never going to sing in a band. And then I listened to Velvet Underground, and I adored it, and I couldn't help but sing along and try to learn and play the music from Velvet Underground and Nico. That's the album with the banana on the cover from Andy Warhol. One song I played a lot was Heroin off that album, and one of my friends heard me playing it one day and said, you're pretty good at that, you should play it out somewhere. And that always stuck in my head, and while I didn't have a lot of courage to play in front of people for a while, it was when I heard Lou Reed and realized that you don't have to sing like Bowie, you don't have to scream, that you can just be yourself and make amazing music. That stuck with me, and that's what really drove me to sing and practice and get better at singing, was because I identified with Lou Reed. I identified with how he sang and how he made it his own. And after listening to that Velvet Underground album, I went out and just started finding other stuff from him. Transformer is one of my favorite albums of all time. That album will never get old, and it gets better every time I listen to it. I could just talk about all the different albums that I listen to, but just listen to him. He's good. He's amazing. He writes beautiful lyrics. He writes savage lyrics. Lyrics that don't sugarcoat and don't try to make things look better than they actually are. And I find as I write music, I think of him and I try to do the same. There was an interesting quote that I heard, and it's attributed to Brian Eno. It says, the first Velvet Underground album sold only 30,000 copies in those early years, but everyone who bought one of those 30,000 copies started a band. Well, I don't think that it's just in those early years, and I think it's still affecting people nowadays. Because it certainly affected me. I guess there isn't a lot more to say other than I urge everybody to listen to Lou Reed's music, and it's definitely out there now, and it's a sad passing of a great musician, great artist, great poet. I am just going to end this with my favorite Lou Reed quote. 1 chord is fine. 2 chords are pushing it. 3 chords and you're into jazz. Miss you, Lou Reed. If you like this blog, subscribe, whatnot. You know, all the junk I say at the end of these, sorry. Not really feeling it all today. Have a great night.